Wow.
Wow.
Well,
Now
well,
we're cooking, baby.
well. Now we know who brought the best upgrades to Australia.
Yeah, clearly.
There it
Clearly it was
is.
Mr. Chang over here.
Our man Manny here, the chief engineer.
I was like, I don't even know what to do right now. So
Red Bull, call me.
yeah. Oh man, what's going on, everybody? Little late for the post race, but right on time as well. Joined here by Manny and Vish. Excuse me. As we kind of go through what happened here post race from the Australian Grand Prix, pretty interesting stuff happening. It was a nice race. It was a fun race. Obviously, a dominating performance by Leclerc, and some issues on with some others, but also some surprises as well. So definitely want to kind of get into a couple of things. We've got a lot of time to cover this race. I know there's not another one for another couple weeks as they head over to Italy. So we'll kind of keep it short for you guys, but we want to thank anybody that's coming on and joining us now at 11 o'clock here in Miami. We do appreciate it as Manny goes to close the door because somebody's being loud and obnoxious over there, apparently. So it's all right, man. It's life, man. This is what we do. We do it we're working from home, basically. So,
Yeah.
how do you guys feel overall of the, just the overall experience today in the the Aussie Grand Prix?
Yeah. Well, so for me, there's kind of two big headlines here. It's that Ferrari was untouchable qualifying, and then on Friday practice it looked like it would be closer. I mean, Leclerc checked out, safety car to catch back up, checked out again, safety car again, checked out again. Like there was Max had nothing for him. He couldn't even stay within like 5 seconds. That was big theme. And then the other one, which I'm sure we're going to spend a lot of time on, is that the Red Bull's really an unreliable piece of crap right now, and that is hurting them. They're behind Mercedes in the constructors. Max is behind Lewis in the drivers because of the George Russell's in second in the drivers championship right now, and that car is not even good. Like that is all on Red Bull, and so that is to me the two big kind of themes coming out of there. Like, is the Ferrari so dominant and so far ahead that even when these other teams, close the gap, or are they just too far behind right now? And then also, I mean, does Red Bull have the experience, given that this is their first year kind of running the engine themselves? I know they're using a lot of Honda engineers and intellectual capital, but are they going to be able to sort this out? Because they are got chat coming here.
Manny and the drama over there.
Anyway,
Yeah, where was this at 3 a.m., man?
No kidding. A couple of things that stood out to me. One, again, you mentioned it, Vish, was just the overall dominating performance by Leclerc. I think that we can talk about, and we will talk about, disappointing race for Carlos Sainz, and it wasn't a reliability issue. It was just he kind of screwed up, right? I mean, he had the pace all weekend, right?
It was both, right? He got screwed in the. He went through it actually in his post race interview, because when you crash out or when you leave early, you get a long interview during the race while they're all just sitting there waiting for everyone else to finish. So he kind of went through it. Obviously, he got screwed in the qualifying when that red flag came out right before he was going to cross the line. And then there was an issue with his car, which is why we was unable to kind of set second lap. So he basically didn't have a real qualifying lap in Q3. And then, yeah, he admitted he screwed it up today. He said, the hards take a while to get up to temperature. I was dropping back, and it was not up to temperature enough to actually try to overtake cars, and I pushed it anyway, and I shouldn't have. So he owned that part of it.
He had a real slow start too, which still, even by those standards, he probably still could have caught up, because the Ferrari is so fast. But yeah, like you said, he just
needed to be a little bit more patient. I think because he had that bad start, he started in ninth, he's dropping back because all these guys are on mediums. If he just waited on it and was a little bit more patient, the race would have come to him, because his tires would have lasted longer. The hards were a good tire in this race, it turns out, by the end of it. So he just needed to stick with it, be patient, wait for them to get up to speed. Like you said, just start picking those guys off. He would have come back through the field. And then, obviously, we know this 2020 hindsight, with all the safety cars, it was going to bunch back up anyway. So he could have, been patient, gotten those positions, worked his way up to, 6th, 7th, and before the first safety car, and he would have been right there, because all that gap that he was falling behind would have shrunk, and then he's in one of the fastest cars on the grid, sitting behind the McLarens and the Mercedes. He would have been able to pick them off.
Yeah,
in the course of the race. So
and
he
you saw so many people overtaking and kind of losing. I mean, there was so much craziness in the midfield. So, and we'll probably we'll get further into what's going on with Sainz, I'm sure, either a little later today or on Wednesday. But the biggest talk, I think, aside from the dominating performance by Leclerc, and I'm going to keep mentioning it because Ferrari. But anyways, honestly, was the reliability issues. Like, what the hell's going on with Max's car? Because Checo, I mean, I know he had one DNF, right, in Bahrain, but like, to be honest, and we talk about this all the time, he's racing a lot better than Max is right now, right? Like, he looks a lot better. So what's going on with is it just a reliability issue? Is he having issues himself? What's going on with Max?
do you want to? I've been doing all the talking here.
I mean, when you kind of see it, though, it's quite clear that whatever is going on with that engine, it seems to just not fit Max's driving. I mean, I think, me and Vish, we actually talked about it last Wednesday. How we have seen how Perez's car is just, yes, it did retire in the
Bahrain.
yes, in that race, which was the first one that opened up the whole thing of what's going on here.
Right.
But overall, like, he's had the much stronger car, and it just seems like Max, when he gets in trouble, when he tries to get to Leclerc, and I think today he tried to do that maybe once or twice in the beginning, but then I think I think even Bish even said it after maybe the 12th lap or probably even earlier. The gap between first and second was just astronomical. It was basically almost, my God, like, it felt like it was miles ahead.
What was it? It was like 13, 14 seconds, right?
At one point, it was 15 seconds, and I'm like, either Max is, his car is not right, or he just didn't know really, there's some issues going on. He doesn't want to push it, right? Because behind them, there was nobody behind them. There's no way that the Mercedes had yet been up there to try to compete with it. So, what's really going on there? And yet, Sergio's getting these, he's actually able to finish races, for the most part. And then Max just seems like, he had to stop his car 21 plus laps before the finish. Like, what's going on? That's a serious issue. Two engine retires in the first three races.
And that's a good point, man. This wasn't close to finishing. Like, the first race, like, Perez on the last lap, it gave up, right? And it's the first race. And then, Max was a few laps before that. This 21 laps, that's, like, not even close. Mm-hmm. They did, like, 2/3 of the race distance and had to bail on it. That's pretty bad. The other thing is, I don't think he was holding back on it. I didn't think the Ferrari was that much better. I mean, the race opened with that phase of, is Leclerc going to be able to keep him outside the DRS zone? And after like a lap or two, you realize, I mean, can Max even stick with him? The answer was no. And one of the things you could kind of tell it was the pace of the car is that middle segment right before Vettel crashed and kind of mixed the race up was Hamilton was faster than Perez. He was about to pass him on track, so they dove into the pits. He came out in front of him, though, which means, like, he overcut him, which is actually really difficult to do. He was going faster on used tires. He came out in front of him, but his cold, hard tires, and they even told him it takes a while to warm up, so Perez got him. He was in the process of passing Perez back when that red came out. And the Mercedes, we know, does not have, like, not nowhere close to the speed that... So the Red Bulls were closer to the Mercedes than they were to the Ferraris today. That is as worrying a sign. Manny had that quote up earlier from Horner where he said, I'd rather have a fast car that's unreliable and fix the reliability than have a slow car that's reliable and try to go faster. I would say today they had a slow car that was unreliable.
Yeah.
Like, they were not, I mean, relatively speaking, right? Obviously, they're near the top of the grid. They're not Austin, right? I mean, they are fast in the context of Formula One, but they were nowhere near the Ferraris, and that has to be a big concern because one of the things, last year when Mercedes and Red Bull were trading the top spot, race to race, there were tracks where, like, okay, this one suits Mercedes well, and you knew they were going to do better. This one suits Red Bull. Ferrari has been strong at every track.
Yep.
So they might just have a really well put together package that's going to be able to compete everywhere. And right now the Red Bull does not appear to have that. So if they continue to fall back, reliability makes it worse because you're not picking up any points, but they have a pace issue too. It's not just that they're unreliable. They're not unreliable and faster than Ferrari or anything. And that's what Max was. Max, I felt, was like actually a little bit more honest, and he said, "We have two problems. One, we have to finish. Like this isn't acceptable. We're falling way behind. But also, we have to actually get more pace because even when we finish, we're not. They're faster than us. So this is. I think Red Bull was the favorite coming into the season. I don't think there's any doubts Ferrari at this point.
Yeah, I think that aside from those two, some of the other interesting stuff was how well, how well George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. That's funny. That's a funny picture. I'm no expert, but the Red Bull engine looks pretty unreliable.
I just had to.
That's
I
great.
love the memes.
That is funny.
The memes this morning are just amazing.
Man, people are so witty. They're so smart, and look at all the crap that they come up with. It's unbelievable, man. But seriously, like, how surprised are you with the start that George Russell has had? And I know both of you are big Mercedes fans. How surprised are you with that? Not only that, I mean, obviously we saw, what was going on with Lewis Hamilton and the fact that he probably could have overtaken George Russell towards the end, but his engine was overheating. So
which part do you want to attack first? You want to attack Russell?
I think I first want to. It's definitely a two-part question, but I definitely want to talk about George Russell first and how how excited you guys are about his start.
I will first off say that I'm very listen. There's a reason why Mercedes went out and got him as their number 2. We don't have to be experts here at Formula One to realize why. It's quite exciting to see him actually. When the times have been tough for Lewis this season, he's been the backbone of it. And we could probably say the same thing for Sergio with Max. When Max has had trouble, Sergio's there to pick up the team. I think it's extremely exciting overall because now, at least when you're a Mercedes fan, you have that reliability of knowing, hey, listen, if one's not good, you know that 2 is going to be competitive. And that's very important, especially when you're still competing for the, the constructors and things like that. That actually boosts still some type of positivity. Right. But I woke up, honestly, it even happened after the race. The main topic of conversation was, which now I'm getting to part 2. Could have Lewis actually passed Sergio if Russell would have given him the leeway? I think, though, there's more to that we'll get to on Wednesday. But for a quick fix and answer is, don't always believe what the TV broadcast is giving you when it comes to audio, because I don't know how many other fans do it, but I've watched Lewis Hamilton, live race cameras for the last 2 races, and I think it's an unbelievable experience because we're getting the vision, what he sees, we're getting everything in time with what the team tells him, and then when he told the team, "You're putting me in a difficult position," then TV decided 5 minutes later to broadcast that.
Everyone wants to cause. They want to cause that little.
Yes, they want to cause that drama. They want to cause that controversy. Right. They want to cause. So but. Do I believe his car was overheating at the particular moment? No. Could it have been overheating if he would have tried to take over Checo? Maybe. And this is what me and Vish were trying to discuss before we went live. There's so many things that could occur. If Hamilton loses the damn freaking race seasons or overall because of a point, this race will be circled as, hey, maybe him going after Checo would have been it. But what if he goes after Checo? What if he, his engine overheats? Then what happens? Then you have the McLaren is the only team out of the whole pack that finishes with 2 cars, which is pretty damn impressive.
Well, I don't see how that's a problem. I don't see how that's an optimal outcome. I don't know what you're talking about.
You saw a smile. You saw a smile on Vish's face. When you mentioned that.
So right now for me, it's about just getting as many points as you can. Listen, the W13 is not even close to being perfect. To you, for you to have a guy at podium and still being in leaders in the construction, I think that's still a positive thing going forward. And right now it's not about the drivers thing, whatever, but I know most fans or most Lewis fans are making it that way because they feel like he had another opportunity of getting forward, and it just happened the way that Russell had the perfect stop because of the flag, and it is what it is.
Well, I think the there's some controversy around this is his engine all of a sudden started overheating when he was going to zip. I mean, he was going to take him. Like, he was faster the whole weekend. He caught up to him even though Russell got a cheap pit stop. Like, he closed that gap back up. Like, there was no way he wasn't faster. And then all of a sudden, as Manny said, what we got on the TV broadcast was just you're putting me in a difficult position. What you didn't hear there, which if you hear their full onboard radio, was they told him his engine was overheating and he backed off of it. And that's why you saw him close it, get within DRS, and then he dropped back a second again. So was that smart? I mean, to Manny's point, you don't know what would have happened. Maybe I think he definitely could have easily passed Russell. Russell did not have the pace from him at all this weekend, and not today either. Even the first stint, remember, after Perez finally got past Hamilton, Russell was like 0.4, 0.5. Hamilton opened that gap up to like 3 seconds before like the pit stop started happening. So like he definitely was the faster car. Obviously, they don't know that Checo's going to make that mistake and go off the track. If they did, they probably would have let Hamilton through because he could have been in a position to take advantage of that. But you don't know that stuff at the time. And I think they're just looking at this saying, we got third and fourth locked up here. Our car's not even that competitive. Let's just count the points where we can. So I understand why they did that, but the reason it's controversial is you have the clear number one driver faster being told not to pass the number two driver. And the number two driver's in front not because he did some kind of brilliant overtake, in which case you could say, look, he earned that position. Look, luck is part of Formula 1, as Lewis is well aware after how he last season ended. But Russell was not there because he was been faster. And he's not there because they put him on like a different stretch. He got lucky to be in front. So I think that's where it gets more controversial then at that point, because you got the faster guy who's your number one driver who could make the overtake, and you're telling him not to, essentially. I told Manny before we went live, it's gonna be an interesting debrief because I'm sure he's gonna want an answer on so I'm not allowed to overtake this kid over here.
Yeah,
I mean, that's gonna be his attitude.
Yeah.
And to add just one more thing to both Russell and to Lewis, let's not forget that the team had asked Russell, listen, if Checo's pushing you and you're wasting your tires, back off. And you heard Russell's response. That's not the answer that I want to hear. so then that's not a very ego number two driver to all of a sudden say, hey, our captain is behind you, stop it a little bit. I mean,
but that's not.
hard,
but that's
right?
That's actually kind of almost the opposite thing, because they were protecting Russell. He was never going to keep Checo behind.
Yeah, no. I'm not talking about the strategy in the race. I'm talking about the race driver themselves.
Yeah,
right?
no, I get that, but he
knows he's the number two. He knows that he's the youngest one, that he's not an 8-time champion, 7-time champion. Here's his opportunity to try to get podium. Like, it's
and I do think that played into it a little bit. I think that played into they didn't want to take the podium away from him. I think if it was like for 5th and 6th, they might have told Hamilton to pass him. I think the podium, even though it's symbolic, I think mattered.
See, I think this creates a much stronger bond. Unlike when you go to Red Bull, there is absolutely no credit given to Checo for the last couple of races. I'm sorry. Everything is about Max. Max. Why
if you notice, even F1,
Checo is not getting no love from Red Bull.
If you notice, even F1 tweeted out, "Oh, what could have been," right? Like
that's my point.
Well,
right?
I mean, the irony.
No, I'm carrying you guys. Like
the irony of that tweet of like what could have been that they put out was it's him looking at Leclerc's car. I'm like, what could have been? He's looking at his bumper like it was the entire fucking race. What are you talking about? He wasn't going to get near that.
Yeah.
Could he even see him? Was he even in view at this point, or was he like more than a straight in front? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that's
like
true.
it's just like Max was not competitive today, and Max said it. We weren't competitive. We couldn't keep up with him. Like I tried, and I had nothing. Like that's why Red Bull has different issues than just the reliability. The reliability is why they're behind Mercedes right now. It's not why they're behind Ferrari.
Right.
And so they got all sorts of stuff to clean up there.
Yeah, that's a quote that Christian Horner said earlier. So, kind of want to move on a little bit before we close this out and talk a little bit about the midfield winners. Honestly,
I think we should start with 5 and 6 maybe in the race. I don't know. Maybe
Listen, are you impressed with how they raced this weekend as a whole? I think they both did really well. Obviously, the pace is not with the other car, with the other teams in front of them. But listen, not a bad race at all. P5 and P6 is really, really good for them in this race.
Yeah, I mean it was.
By the way, we're talking about McLaren.
Yeah, well, I got my. Even though it's shout out to Canes
Papaya!
baseball. Shout out to
Papaya.
Canes baseball, but it's
Papaya!
also papaya. So
We're all wearing papaya colors.
I'm double booking over here with the Canes baseball papaya color. Yeah, no, I mean the track suited them, did much better. I mean, the drivers are good. Like when you have a good drivers lineup, they're gonna make stuff happen. So they're gonna take those opportunities. And both of these are guys that are gonna maximize points. So that matters a lot. After the race was kind of interesting because Lando was like, no, we were just like this track was better for our car. Still the same car we had in Bahrain. If we went back there, we'd finish 13th again or whatever. And I was like, well, that's not encouraging. And then Ricardo kind of had like an opposite perspective and said, no, I mean, like, we're all learning about our cars. So, we don't know what tracks even suit us. Maybe we're like suited to most of the tracks. We don't know that. So I think there's a little bit of a split there. But yeah, overall, it can ask for much better than that. 5th and 6th is kind of not even on the table. Hoping to get like one car in the points probably, but I do think you're actually starting to see it settle. You mentioned the overall midfield, kind of settling back into where we thought it would be more towards at the beginning of the year. Like Haas is kind of dropping back now, right. Alpha's dropping back, and you're seeing kind of. I think we all knew Ferrari had taken a step, so it was going to be like the top 3. It's still a little fanned out.
Bro.
Well, I think coming into the year, you would think like Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes were teams that could potentially win the championship. Then like McLaren was kind of by themselves, maybe with Alpine in that next group, and then like kind of the rest behind it. And the first few races was all jumble, but now you're kind of starting to see it settle into that, where kind of McLaren is, at least for now, sitting in front of the rest of the midfield teams. And then the other question we kind of had, especially after the first race, is like, is the Mercedes engine a dog? The answer is clearly no at this point. If you can get 4 cars in the top 6. Then the engine's fine. So
Yeah.
So the Mercedes engine looks to be fine, and actually it looks like the Red Bull one might be the problematic one. So
it's unbelievable how everything has kind of turned a little bit with Red Bull and
By the way,
Mercedes.
may I say this quick statement, and we'll get to it on Wednesday. Stroll's a bitch. There you go.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna actually, Manny and I were talking about this. We're gonna spend some time on Austin and what exactly they have been by far the worst team this year, and they don't really seem to have a path forward. Where like Manny said, we'll dig into that more on Wednesday and try to see like what should they even be doing right now, because they have one driver who doesn't appear to even.
By the way,
know how to drive
another
anymore.
top 10 finish for my surprise driver of the season, Ocon. I like it. By the way, that Alonso strategy went to shit.
Yeah, that was kind of that was
hard to watch, Vish. That was hard to watch.
That was I don't understand why they didn't pit him on the first safety car and take they left him out there. He started dropping back. Then by the time they pitted him, you drop even further back, and it was kind of a curious decision. Everyone should have pitted at that point that needed to. We haven't even gotten into the whole Albon didn't pit until the last lap, and kind of sneakily, good job reading the fine print in the rules, because he had stayed ahead. All the lapped cars didn't like actually take that extra lap, and so like they couldn't pass him in the pits, so he just sat there and he didn't get lapped, so he got 10th. That was like genius. I was doing the math, and I'm like, he's gonna drop way back, and then it was like, oh wait, all the other cars are done because they're behind Leclerc and they got lapped. So by keeping that like 20-second pit gap, he stayed on the lead lap, which means that even though he pitted, it didn't matter because he did an extra lap for the rest of the field.
Yeah,
that was behind him. It was so.
That's funny how that works.
But obviously, like normally, you're losing like 10 seconds a lap on 58 lap old tires, but it worked this time. So it was a hell of a drive to keep that car going and even anything competitive.
If you're a Haas fan, you're not happy. See a Williams get ahead of you top 10.
Well, I mean, that was where like you can look at where the +1 lap is starting there, and that is where, and you can see Stroll's like let's pit twice thing, right? That actually is why he stayed on the lead lap as well, because he essentially did the same thing as Albon did, except he pitted twice, so he went all the way to the back of the field, but he also went basically the whole race on hards, because after the Sainz safety car, he didn't pit. And so you could see kind of in how they stayed on the lead lap because they basically did a pit stop less. And that allowed them to, I mean, Stroll almost got in the points and he was a complete disaster today. So that strategy seemed to work, but it was probably more of a one-off because you normally cannot drive that long on tires. And I do wonder. We talked about on the show on Wednesday, they skipped a step in the tires. The softs ended up being worthless this week, other than like the one lap qualifying. So the mediums and hards, but the hards ended up being the best race tire. And I do wonder, if they had gone and not skipped that step, and the mediums and the hards were one compound softer, the whole race is different because the medium is the hard then. And that medium did not last very long, so I do wonder if they get a little bit more aggressive with the tire choices in the next race.
Also, this race wasn't at night normally, where it's been at night the last couple of weeks, and the temperatures just changed, right? Because now the sun is out, the track's been heated up already for 3-4 days, so it was quite clear that the softs weren't even going to be considered as soon as especially after you saw how long Alonso went with it. You're like, well, if we're going to do this, we're not even going to try the softs because, the damn heat on the track is just going to burn it so quickly. And then unless you're a driver like Max with mediums, your front right just goes to shit because you don't know how to brake correctly and your car sucks. Then you got to go in and change it. So,
do you guys think that removing one of the DRS zones changed a little bit how this race was?
I think it hurt Red Bull.
Yeah.
I don't think it hurt them. I think it, in theory, was supposed to, but then, they weren't close. You're not getting a second a lap in a DRS zone. Like, when you're getting dropped a half a second a lap.
Let me rephrase. It hurt Red Bull in the beginning if they would have had an opportunity.
After
the lead of, what is it, 15 seconds?
I don't believe Max ever had DRS. So I don't think so either. So it didn't really matter for him. I do think it hurt Checo, because he got hung up. Hamilton, in particular, was able to hold him up for a long time. And I think that actually is where Checo damaged his tires trying to get around Hamilton. Hamilton was actually conserving them because you saw him drop back a little, almost like got caught by Russell. And then in that second phase of the tires, he started eating up Perez and was going, and actually was right about to pass him when Perez pitted and then came out in front, because he did a much better job of conserving those tires. So I think if Checo had that extra DRS zone when he caught up to Hamilton, he would have gotten past him a lot easier, and he wouldn't have ruined his tires, and he might have been closer to Max. Not that it ended up mattering, because with all the reliability issues Max had, Checo ended up in second, which is where he's going to end up anyway. But I think that whole opening stint would have been much better for him.
All right, so let's go over these standings one more time before we head on out of here. Well, first of all, let's go through the driver standings. As we see here, the big surprise is probably George Russell there at number 2. That's pretty incredible. He's doing well. He's doing well. So, congrats to him. So you got Charles Leclerc, got George Russell. At the 3, Carlos Sainz, which I think is going to be a big topic of conversation for us on Wednesday, is his role now with Ferrari and moving forward. Sergio Perez at number 4 with Red Bull, Lewis Hamilton sticking there in the top 5, and then you've got Verstappen in number 6, which is probably the most surprising out of all of it. Esteban Ocon, Lando Norris, Kevin Magnussen, and then Valtteri Bottas rounding out the top 10.
So a couple of things that are kind of jumping out when you look at this. One is, I think Hamilton and Verstappen are clearly the number 1 drivers at the team, but they're in second in relation to their partners. So that'll work itself out. But that is showing where they're blowing points, right? Because both of those drivers, if their teammate can score more, they should be even further ahead. And the other thing is we actually talked about this on the season preview, but Ocon is outclassing Alonso pretty heavily.
Yeah, he really is.
And especially after today.
Well, look, today went bad strategy-wise, but even then, look, we can say, it was certainly a mechanical failure, but Alonso crashed out in qualifying, which is why he was in that position. Now, it was a mechanical failure, so it's not exactly the same thing, and same thing in the last race.
And guys, can we also just relax about Carlos Sainz? He was a half a second of being up there, at pole.
I don't know if we can.
No, I will say his start was absolutely horrible.
Well, he was on the hards.
He didn't have no grip on those tires.
I don't think
Right,
anyone.
I agree.
I don't think we're saying that Sainz is like a bad driver or anything. I think we know how Ferrari operates, and at this point, let me put it this way: if he's in third and Leclerc's in fourth, they're telling him to move the f out of the way. Like they're not going to do what Mercedes did with George Russell. Ferrari does not give a crap.
Yeah.
They will prioritize who they think is the number one driver, and Sainz, to his own doing today, right? I mean, the stuff that happened in qualifying was not on him.
Right.
It was bad luck, and then there was actually a car problem. But today was all on him, and he's put himself into a position where they're going to look at it.
And I think
looking at the same standings we are and saying,
today was an opportunity for him to be like, okay, I'm gonna put my stamp on this team and show out, and he
We
did.
all thought that for sure.
yeah,
He
and at
definitely
least
did.
get some good points so you're staying within touching distance. Like at this
Right.
point, even all of us, I think we're all big fans of Sainz on this show.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting there with the situation where they're 1-2 and Sainz is in front right now, and I'm Ferrari, I'm telling him to move the f out of the way. I want my lead driver to get the 25 points. He's put himself in that position. He's gonna need Leclerc to like have reliability issues and stuff to eat that gap up so he can be
Well, let's not even
competitive.
wish that upon anybody. All right.
No, but I mean, I'm just saying like they're gonna prioritize Leclerc, and they
Oh, for
probably
sure.
should based on the
Yeah.
standings right now. I
At
know
this
it's only
point,
3
yeah.
races in, but he's clearly established himself as I'm gonna be the big gun here, and Ferrari does play favorites just like Red Bull does. So they're not gonna like Mercedes actually lets you race, which is how like Rosberg ended up winning one year, but Ferrari and Red Bull do not. So I think that's why Sainz is such a big talking point because he's shown pace over 3 races, but he hasn't capitalized, and now he's in a position where he might not have that opportunity.
Right. And here are the constructor standings.
Mercedes in second. This is just
Mercedes in
hilarious.
second, baby. Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull, McLaren, Alpine, in the top 5, and then you've got Alfa Romeo, Haas, and nobody cares about the rest apparently. So yeah,
Well,
I mean,
Williams got a point. And
yeah, they did.
And like we were saying, Austin Martin is the only team without a point, and frankly, just
I don't
Bring
think
back
they
Nico.
score one.
yeah, that again, that'll be I mean, just to be clear, he did 2/3 of the races and is part of that zeros.
True story.
But
Bro, call Piastri, bro. Piastri needs to have a seat, man.
well, a couple of things to kind of dig into a little bit deeper on Wednesday's show is probably what the hell's going on with Austin, and then just also how the back markers have been complete shit to the point that they're impacting the results of the races by wrecking their cars repeatedly.
Yep.
It's now the second race in a row where they've completely turned the race around by just can't keep it on the track.
Nicholas Latifi.
Oh, he finished.
We finished.
Yep.
Hey, can't blame it on him this time. All right, guys.
Bumper cars.
I think that'll wrap it up for today, though. We'll definitely be back on Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. To kind of go a little more into detail on the Aussie Grand Prix and maybe look ahead a little bit and see what's going on with these teams and how they can get better and how they can start competing a little bit better, especially the teams up at the top. Vish, Manny, thank you guys for joining us. Make
Have
sure
a
you
great
follow
Sunday.
us.
See you Wednesday.
Make sure you follow us on Twitter at F1_5 Reasons and subscribe to YouTube and to Apple Podcasts or wherever it is you get your podcasts. Make sure you check us out there as well, hitting the apex. And we'll see you guys on Wednesday.